Welcome to Eyes on Books, a production of the Village Video Club and Suzanne Savlov. Today we're talking about a book written by Matt Coyle called Odyssey's End. It's the last in a series of 10 books. We were trying to decide whether it was a crime novel or a crime mystery. I think the best one is crime mystery. Matt Coyle is the best-selling author of the Rick Cahill Private Eye Crime series. He was named the 2021 San Diego Writers Festival Mystery Writer of the Year, and his novels have won the Anthony Award, the Shamus Award, the Lefty Award, and the San Diego Book Club, among others. Odyssey's End is 10th in this award-winning series. Matt is a graduate of UC San Diego, Santa Barbara, and lives in San Diego. With that, it's an interesting book. It takes you in many different directions. You have to pay attention. You can't read this book with a lot of other noise going on because there's so much going on. It goes in so many different directions. There's so many different characters. It really pulls you, doesn't it?
It pulls you, it sends you, it is quite interesting. I am very involved in crime novels, in mystery novels. It sends you, like you said, in many different directions. But this one really took me in a whole different world, in a whole different direction.
Yeah, you really had to pay attention.
You do have to pay attention. And I normally am not involved in books that have a lot of guns involved, a lot of cryptocurrency.
Okay.
I do not understand cryptocurrency.
I'm glad you don't.
And you didn't have to understand it in depth.
Right.
But there were criminals that were released from prison early, mobsters.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they appeared in the book and you had to understand their role.
I know. The roles were so intertwining and in and out. It was really, you had to pay attention.
You did. And how they worked with the main character,
Rick.
And Rick in himself is quite interesting. He was a private investigator who in the other 9 novels had quite an interesting life.
Yeah, he had brain disease was worsening, and Rick Cahill risks everything, even his life, to provide for his fractured family's future. Ooh, says a lot.
The brain disease that he had, as you said, was worsening, but it caused his temper. It really affected his temper. Yeah. And he had these outrageous flare-ups with his temper. And you never knew when they were going to happen and get really pushed to the limit.
But surprisingly enough, even with all of that, when he got into tense situations, he was right on point. I mean, he was right there, knew exactly what he was doing and how he was doing it and all that sort of stuff.
So what surprised me the most was when he was on one of his travels to follow a victim or an interesting character in the book. He was caught in a hotel room, and the landlord of the hotel came in, and he was without his shirt. And she was so surprised to see all the scars on his body.
Oh, that's right.
And I was surprised to find out how many scars he had.
and still be alive.
It really surprised me. But Rick's main intrigue was to solve the mystery that he was given to solve.
Yeah.
And to reunite with his wife,
and
who
daughter.
had left him,
Yeah, and
his young daughter.
And intriguingly enough, his assignment was from a mobster to find his daughter, because ostensibly Sergio the mobster needed a kidney transplant, and she was apparently the only viable potential for that to happen, but he hadn't seen her in years, so he sent Rick on a royal goose chase to try to find the daughter.
Well, we don't know how wild the goose chase was, but but Rick took on the task of finding the daughter.
Yeah.
Anyway, the book took us with all the twists, all the turns, and the book took us to a conclusion.
Yeah. But the epilogue was kind of interesting, but I think we're going to leave that for the author to explain.
And we have to apologize to our readers. We are taping outside, and we have no control over the exterior sounds. Usually we're in the studio, and we cannot control what's happening around us. So you will hear other sounds going on. But everything is really okay. And we're enjoying this atmosphere.
Yeah, this is kind of nice.
On the patio
Different.
Of Clubhouse One.
It's not as cold as I thought it was going to be.
So things are going just great for us. And we will be interviewing, rather than Zoom, we'll be interviewing the author
Live.
in person,
That's
who drove
exciting.
in from San Diego to be with us.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So he will be able to speak to us and fill in all the gaps
In just a moment.
and let us know
Yes.
what is happening.
Got some great questions for him. Matt, welcome. Thank you for driving all the way up here from San Diego to be with us. And it's exciting to have the author live and with us so we can ask you some cool questions. No. One question that I had in reading the book was, and we noticed that you had 10 total books that you had written. Were those planned from the beginning, or did they evolve?
First of all, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Well, I wanted to write one first. I wanted to, that was a lifetime goal that it took me a long time to start pursuing. And once I was in the middle of writing, I don't know, the first draft maybe, I realized there was more to this character that I wanted to explore. So I didn't really have a number set out, but I definitely knew I was going to, I had to get it published first. But whether it was published or not, I knew I was going to be writing more than one book. They didn't have a set number though.
Did as you evolved through the other books, was there a common thread that you carried through, or each? I know you probably could read each one standalone, but was there a common thread that you tried to hang on to other than Rick?
Well, it is really basically about Rick, and I'm always happy when a reviewer says you can read it as a standalone. And that's kind of that's a very delicate balance when you're writing a series, and particularly a series where there's a lot of carryover for this guy. There's a lot of his life that carries over, and there is some occasional case stuff that carries over. So I am always happy when people say you can read it as a standalone. But it's really about one man's journey. It's Rick Cahill, and he's trying to. His wife was murdered before the first book, Yesterday's Echo, and he was charged for that crime. Released but never exonerated. Never tried but never exonerated. So, and he feels somewhat responsible for her death for some of the actions he took that night. So he's really trying to redeem himself when he's now a private investigator, and he's trying to redeem himself with every case he takes, or at least every case I write about. He's trying to get that sense of doing right, and sometimes that can lead him to make emotional decisions that go wrong. But it is about one man's journey for redemption.
How did the brain disease start?
Yeah, that goes back to a rule. I had two rules when I first started writing Rick. 20 years ago. It took me 10 years ago to publish. But for Rick, one of the rules I had was that everything had to carry over. Everything had to matter. That included every bad decision he made, there had to be repercussions. And so that's why we talked about things carry over from book to book. But all the physical trauma that he endured as well, I figured that had to carry over too, because I'm not a fan of the book where the guy gets shot in the shoulder, and in the first chapter and the fourth chapter, he's pitching batting practice for the Dodgers. You know, I like it all to matter. So I started to add things up after seven books, and I realized, well, the guy's had multiple concussions. He boxed Golden Gloves when he was a teenager. He played football from Pop Warner through 2 years of college. He's had concussions as a PI. He was a cop for a couple of years. It's a very physical life, and I figured that he's probably got CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the pro football disease. And I think honestly, I think there's probably a lot of people that have it and don't know it yet. Every football player they've ever, the ultimate diagnosis as of now is only when, in an autopsy, when they open the brain. Mm-hmm. And every football player they've looked for it has had it. And there's a lot of different aspects of leading kind of a physical life where he doesn't have to be football. But anyway, so I figured, well, if I'm going to be true to this rule I have, then he's got CTE. And it made for a really good and interesting book 8, which was Last Redemption. But then that's a life sentence. It doesn't go away. So in the next book, Doom Legacy, I had to look at a different aspect of it because I couldn't run away from it. So, which I had in the book, which was kind of these violent outbursts that can come from this disease. Not everyone has them, but it can. It's a real symptom. And it messed up his home life with his wife and his child. And then in this book, Odyssey's End, I didn't want to keep pounding all the aspects of the disease, but I figured, well, this is a man who's, the lifespan for someone with this disease as of right now is 53, and he's 43. So I figured he was going to be looking at his mortality straight in the face. It's coming. He can see it. It's the sands of time are dropping faster for him than other people. And he's a father now, and you never expect to be a father, kind of a miracle child. His family's estranged, and so his whole goal in the latest book is to have a soft landing for his daughter when life knocks her down. And he knows better than anybody that life's going to knock you down. And he doesn't think he's not going to be around for as long as he'd like to be. So he's looking for the cushion to be a kind of a nest egg, a beginning of a nest egg, as this book opens. And I won't go, unless you ask me about it, I won't go too much further into it. But I couldn't not have this disease continue on. Now, my publisher thought, well, that was kind of a dumb idea, but give your fairly successful protagonist of a fairly successful series a fatal disease, but had to follow the rules, and I'm happy I did it because it kind of coincided with him becoming a father. I put those two things together. Something I never imagined for him. And it raised the stakes for everything he does now. It's not just him and his dog anymore, him and Midnight. Yeah. When he makes mistakes now, they can have dire consequences to others aside from himself.
Does it really end?
Let me just say this. I'll say this about the book. All the books each book seems harder to write to me, even though I should be better at it. Yeah. This one I think was the hardest one to write, and that was, if this was indeed the end for Rick, in whatever aspect, was the journey up to the challenge for him? Was it significant enough for all that he's gone through? Would this be a good ending point? And if it is indeed, or if it's a pause, I feel that yes, with this book, Odyssey's End, would be a good place to do either.
Kind of threw me was the epilogue, because I was flowing along, I had it, yeah, and then
always an epilogue in my books.
The epilogue went boing.
Yeah.
I just leave it, read the whole book all the way through to the epilogue to get the full understanding. Yes. The full understanding of what.
I was very happy with the epilogue, I must say.
Oh my God, we went, what?
Good. That was the intention.
It was nice that it like you said, here's this guy that has CTE, and I have to say that it was interesting to see when he got in tense physical situations,
Yeah.
he was on point. He was sharp.
Yeah.
So it seems as though the CTE never interfered with his ability, and it could be his muscle memory from being a cop, that
And a private investigator.
And a-
He's lived a
yeah.
violent life.
yes, yeah. So he almost went on autopilot.
Yeah, well, he's not in dire stages of dementia or anything in the book.
Yeah.
But he's definitely feeling aspects of the disease.
And getting worse.
Yes, getting
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
But no, I think he's on an adrenaline rush for the last 50 pages or so. Yeah.
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 Wow. And it was nice to see his effort to reestablish
Don't.
a connection
Yeah.
with.
Sorry, I think he's on the right track. I don't think he's going to give anything away. Yeah, his whole, like I mentioned earlier, and what drives Rick, and it's to redeem himself. Well, actually, by the time we've gotten to this book, he sort of has redeemed himself, but now he has these extra responsibilities of a child and a wife, estranged right now. But so he's thinking as he's going through this. There's a lot of action in the end of the book. We'll just say that.
Yes.
His goal is to be able to see his family once again. That's what's driving him.
Yeah.
Yes, he wants to have something for his daughter to land on when life knocks her down, but he wants to be able to see his family one last time, or for them to know that he was thinking about them. And so that gave it a different and more, to me, a more personal aspect.
Your word redemption now makes more sense after reading that epilogue and putting all those pieces together. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for reading it.
What of, not only with this book, but maybe with your whole series, what was your main objective to give your audience?
I just want to entertain my audience. I don't have any grand schemes. I'm not a thematic writer, although I realized with the last 3 books there has been a theme, and it's family, and which is ironic because I don't have children. It's the biggest regret of my life. I don't have children. It's just sometimes life doesn't click the way it should. And I wasn't sure I could write about family, but I'm of a certain age where we've gone through a lot in our lives, and in my family there's been a certain amount of loss. So I understand the deep aspects of loss and love. So there it was. I was not a thematic writer, but I had this theme that kind of popped up, and in this book it was more in front of me. It wasn't something in my subconscious. It was something I was thinking about. But when I started writing this guy, you asked me, did I have this plan or this plan? I didn't have any plans. I didn't know what I was doing. I just want to write a book. I told people I have a degree in English from 50 decades ago, and I really wanted to be a writer from a very young age. I read Raymond Chandler, and he was kind of an inspiration for me. But I didn't do it for 30 years. I didn't start writing until I was 43. And I just wanted to write, because you make the mistake of, because I didn't really have a career either. I had jobs. I managed a restaurant. I've been in sales for many years. Almost 5 years ago, I quit my day job now. And so you make the mistake of telling people that you want to be a writer, and they go, okay, well, where's the book?
Or they start trying to give you the book to write.
Exactly. You get a lot of that.
Yeah,
I
imagine
got a
you
great idea. I go, great. Here's a typewriter. Go.
Yeah, write it on the back of a postage stamp and send it to me.
Right. So I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to, first of all, I wanted to achieve that goal. I wanted to be able to live with myself, with the guilt that was building from not following something that I thought I was going to do. And then once I really took the time, I was working for a golf company, the 4th one that I could see was going to go out of business, like the other 3 I'd worked for in 10 years. And so when it did, or they went out of business or they were bought by another huge entity that would let go everybody. And so when it finally did, I said, well, this is it. I have to write a book, or I can't talk about it anymore. I can't pretend it's something I'm going to do. I got to write a book. And when I wrote that first draft, I was unemployed and had some money saved up. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. And I did it. First draft, which I thought was a book, but clearly it was not a book. It was a bad first draft. But a guy I'd worked with in the golf business called me up and said, hey, I need somebody in sales over here for this sports licensing company. I said, well, sure, I'll come over. By the way, I wrote the book. I'll probably have an agent in a couple months. she'll sell it, I'll have the house in La Jolla, and then I won't be able to do this for you anymore. So I worked for him for 16 years.
Oh my goodness.
I did write 5 books while I had a day job, and 5 books were published as a full-time job, when I had a full-time job. But those 6 months where I was unemployed and doing something that I was meant to do, good or bad, this is what God had put me on earth to do as a profession. Whether I ever achieved anything or not, I realized as I was doing it, yes, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you've been wasting too much time. So that, to me, wherever this goes, I don't know. As I was doing it, would it be 10 books? Would it be, I mean, I'm writing something different right now, so there's more books to come. But I'd hoped I'd be writing a series. I'd hoped that I'd have 10 books published, but
Kudos.
there was no grand scheme.
Yeah, kudos along with all the awards. That, if I read them, we'd be here for another 20 minutes.
All right.
When do you know? You said you wrote that first draft, very first draft, and then you mentioned that you weren't happy with it.
I'm not happy with any of them.
You still?
First drafts? No, they're all bad.
Oh, the first drafts. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you know when that is finally ripe, ready to go?
Well, for the first book, I knew when someone finally said yes, when an agent finally said yes, after 75 no's. But thankfully, I'm thankful for all those no's, because whatever level I started at, when I finally got an yes, and then very soon thereafter I got a publisher. If somehow one of the earlier drafts had been picked up and someone had published it, it wouldn't be as good as what I finally came up with. So I had to become a much better writer as I was going. And aside from that, I developed my own voice. All those years of writing, you just develop a voice. I became a much better writer. But I know when it's not ready is when I've written that first draft. And first of all, when I'm reading the draft, I think, as I'm writing, I think, well, this is probably the worst thing you've ever done. And this will be the book where they realize that you're a fraud and you're a hack all this time. And then once I read it all the way through and I'm done with it first, you know what? This is workable. This isn't as bad as I thought. And then I do multiple revisions. I can do 5 to 8 revisions. These aren't huge, expansive revisions where I'm changing everything, but I'm polishing. Things are filling in. I have, I believe in my subconscious. I worked with a woman named Carolyn Wheat who, for many years, was kind of a mentor to me. And she said, Matt, your subconscious is a much better writer than you are. And I believe that. Because when I'm writing, sometimes something will come, and what became the first first sentence of the first book, Yesterday's Echo, was, it came to me, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months into writing it, was the first time I saw her, she made me remember and she made me forget. And I realized when I wrote that line, there was so much more about this character I didn't know, and he lived his life, there been a lot of tragedy in his life. And that opened things up to me, and also made me realize this guy was darker than I wanted him to be. Darker than he was getting to the point I needed to have him darker. So that changed everything for me. And so I'm very open as I'm writing a first draft to letting my subconscious go. I don't really outline, so I just throw it all out there. There's a great writer named John Lesquat. If you're mystery writers, you probably have read him. It's Lescroat. And this is an adult thing, right? I can swear. I won't use the term he did, but he said, when I write a first draft, I allow myself to write crap and, make obvious sense.
Odyssey's End, where'd you come from? How did you come up with that? Other than the fact that you were saying this is the final book? Okay.
The titles always come organically from the book, and sometimes I have to put them back in for them to be organic. So because I'm very late with my titles, they never come first, except for the book I'm writing now, ironically. But Odyssey's End, it comes from a line that Rick says, I think he says it out loud to Moira, his sidekick, that he's, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to be a private investigator.
Yeah.
I have a family.
Yeah.
This is my Odyssey's End.
Yeah. Okay. What are you working on now?
Something completely different. It's Rick is in first person. I've been writing one character for 20 years in first person. I've been in one guy's head because he's part of me, I'm part of him. So now I'm writing something with multiple points of view, female point of view, male point of view. Still mystery, of course. It's a former cop who is quietly made to leave the force because he lied on the witness stand for reasons that will become apparent. He's lost a daughter, and that ties into why he lied in court, because he wanted to nail somebody. He's got a lot of sense of what my old guy Rick had, this need for justice. And his father is an ex-cop as well, and he's ill, and he's, in spite of all the medical aid he gets, he can't afford his bills because, for one thing, the guy's name is Tim Kincannon, my new protagonist. He wants him to have 24-hour care, which his father fights, but he needs it. So he wants to pay for that, and he is a private investigator, Tim Kincannon, but he's not making enough money to pay for all these other things. He's divorced as well, and there's some expense there.
Wow.
So the opportunity to fill in as an investigator for a public defender comes up, and he can't, he needs the money, he has to do it, but he's like, he's a true believer on this side, and the woman he's working for, a public defender, is a true believer on the other side, and so he's got to go in and see, try to do his job for people he used to put in jail. And so there's obviously a lot of tension there, but there's a little romance, not surprisingly, and they butt heads, but they do see the strengths of each other, and there's a kind of a nasty crime in there too. But I'm in the very early stages.
Okay, let us know when you're done with the book.
Yeah, we'd love to help pass that on for you. We were both fighting crime book or mystery book or both.
I just call them crime.
Crime, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My old publisher always called them thriller, but I just call it crime.
Yeah, I used all three words.
It's fine.
Well, Rick, this has been a pleasure. I've been given the sign.
I saw something going on.
Yeah, we have to draw this to an end. Thank you so much. You were incredible.
Thank you for writing the book. And
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
sending
driving
us on
up,
an incredible
spending
journey.
time with us, answering our questions so patiently.
I enjoyed it.
I want to thank you all for joining us for Eyes on Books. And once again, I want to thank Matt Coyle for joining us for Eyes on Books. Please join us again next month for our new session, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
We thank you for tuning in to Eyes on Books. And if you have any books that you think might make an interesting discussion or authors who are good speakers, we'd love to hear your suggestions. Contact us at eyesonbooks@yahoo.com and keep watching.